My name is Bessie Rodriguez, and I'm 24 years old. I still remember the exact moment I realized I wasn't wanted. I was 7 years old, standing in our cramped kitchen, my toes curled against the cold linoleum as if gripping the floor might keep me from floating away. The air smelled like glue and poster paint. My mother stood at the counter, completely absorbed in my older sister's science project. She adjusted angles, smoothed edges, rewrote labels in her neat, confident handwriting. The blue ribbon they were certain my sister would win was already sitting beside it, a celebration before the victory. "Mom?" I asked, my voice small, almost apologetic for existing. I held up my own project, a carefully constructed solar system diorama. I'd spent 3 days on it, staying up late after homework, repainting planets until they looked just right. My fingers were sticky with dried glue. "Can you help me with this part?" She didn't look at me, not even for a second. She waved her hand in my direction, dismissive and impatient. "Not now, Bessie. Can't you see I'm busy with Betty's project? Go figure it out yourself." That was it. No yelling, no harsh words that would echo loudly enough for someone to notice. Just quiet dismissal, the kind that cuts deeper because no one ever calls it cruelty. That night, I sat on my bed and carefully glued the final pieces of my project together alone. The house was quiet except for laughter drifting in from the living room, where my parents and Betty were already celebrating a win that hadn't even happened yet. I worked slowly, deliberately, afraid that if I rushed, I'd ruin the only thing that felt like proof I deserved to take up space. When I finished, I leaned back and stared at it. It was good, maybe even great, but it didn't matter, because no one would notice. No one ever did. Growing up in the shadow of a golden child is like being a ghost in your own home. You're there, technically, but you're never really seen, never fully acknowledged. I learned early that the path of least resistance was invisibility. If I didn't ask for anything, I couldn't be disappointed. If I didn't need anything, I couldn't be ignored. Betty was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, athletic, naturally charismatic. She commanded attention without ever having to ask for it. Teachers adored her. Coaches praised her. My parents beamed whenever she entered a room. Meanwhile, I became an expert at shrinking myself. I spoke softly. I stayed out of the way. I learned to solve problems alone, because asking for help only reminded everyone that I was inconvenient. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood. Every bad grade, even when it was still a B, was a disappointment. Every mistake, proof that I just wasn't trying hard enough. I was the family afterthought, the child they corrected, not celebrated. By middle school, the roles were firmly set. When something went wrong, it was my fault. When something went right, it was despite me. My parents attended every one of Betty's soccer games, rain or shine, but somehow couldn't make it to my school award ceremonies. They threw elaborate birthday parties for her, decorations, extended family, professional photos. My birthdays passed with a quick, "We'll do something later," followed by excuses and forgotten promises. Later never came. I tried anyway. God, I tried. I got straight A's. I joined clubs. I stayed late after school for academic competitions. I thought if I just worked harder, became better, became quieter and brighter all at once, maybe I'd finally earn their pride. But the goalposts kept moving. Nothing was ever enough. By high school, I had fully accepted my role as the family scapegoat. I didn't fight it anymore. I didn't complain when my parents forgot to pick me up. I didn't argue when my achievements were brushed aside. I told myself it didn't hurt, that I was independent, strong. But late at night, lying in the dark, I wondered what was wrong with me. What invisible flaw made me so easy to overlook? Still, there was something inside me that refused to die completely. A quiet determination I didn't have words for yet. I buried it beneath politeness and obedience, but it was there, waiting. Senior year was when everything finally cracked. I'd been accepted to Princeton with a partial scholarship. Not Harvard like Betty. She never let anyone forget that, but still impressive. Still something to be proud of. I stared at the acceptance letter for hours before showing it to my father, rehearsing how I'd say it, how calm and grateful I'd sound. Maybe this time, I thought. Maybe now. He glanced at the letter, barely skimming it, then handed it back with a tight expression. "Princeton is expensive," he said flatly. "We're already stretched thin with Betty's tuition." My chest tightened. "I have a scholarship," I said quietly, "and I can work part-time." His jaw hardened. "Don't be selfish, Bessie. Your sister's education has to come first. She's going to do something important with her life." The words he didn't say hung heavy between us. Unlike you. That night, my mother found me packing a duffel bag. "What are you doing?" she asked, watching me fold clothes with shaking hands. "I'm leaving," I said, and for the first time in my life, my voice didn't waver. She laughed like I'd told a joke. "Don't be dramatic. Where would you even go?" "I got a job tutoring online," I said, not looking at her. "It won't pay much, but it'll be enough." Her voice sharpened. "You're being ridiculous, after everything we've done for you." I looked up then, really looked at her. "What exactly have you done for me, Mom?" I asked. "Name one thing." She froze. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. And in that silence, I saw the truth reflected back at me. She couldn't think of a single thing. "You're ruining this family," she finally snapped. "Your sister's stressed about her finals, and here you are creating drama." Something inside me broke. Or maybe, finally, it mended. I finished packing, walked out the front door, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. The first year on my own was brutal. There's no softer word for it, no poetic way to dress it up. Brutal was the truth. I deferred my Princeton acceptance the same week I moved out. Even with the scholarship, the numbers didn't add up. Tuition, housing, books, there was no safety net waiting underneath me. No parents to call, no emergency fund quietly set aside just in case. Instead, I moved into a tiny studio apartment with peeling wallpaper and a shower that only ran cold. The radiator clanged like it was fighting for its life, and the single window looked out over an alley that smelled permanently of damp concrete and regret. I worked 3 jobs. During the day, I tutored students online. High schoolers struggling with calculus, middle school kids terrified of science. On weekends, I waitressed, forcing smiles through aching feet and customers who snapped their fingers like I was invisible. At night, I stocked shelves at a bookstore until my hands were numb and my eyes burned from exhaustion. I was tired all the time, but there was a strange peace in it. For the first time in my life, every ounce of effort went toward me, not toward earning approval, not toward proving I was worthy of space, just survival and slowly independence. No one from my family called. Not on my birthday, not on holidays, not once. At first, that silence hurt more than anything they'd ever said. I kept my phone beside me, charging, volume on high, convinced that eventually, surely, they'd realize I was gone. They never did, and gradually, that pain transformed into something else. Determination. If they weren't going to miss me, then I would build a life so full that their absence wouldn't define it. Tutoring became my lifeline. I discovered I was good at it, really good. I could take concepts that terrified students and break them down into pieces that finally made sense. Kids who'd been failing started passing. Parents started recommending me to other parents. 1 student became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became 100. Word spread quietly, the way real success usually does. Still, the path wasn't smooth. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, staring at the ceiling, calculating rent in my head like a prayer. 1 bad month could mean eviction. 1 illness could derail everything I'd built. The isolation was suffocating. I'd walk past restaurants filled with families, parents laughing, kids talking over each other, and feel a hollow ache open in my chest. In those moments, doubt crept in. Did I make a mistake? Should I have swallowed my pride and stayed? Imposter syndrome stalked me relentlessly. Who was I to think I could build something from nothing? I had no business degree, no formal training, just instinct, stubbornness, and the fear of failure breathing down my neck. My first attempt at building an educational website was a disaster. I poured months of savings into a developer who vanished without warning. No explanation, no product, no refund. I was left staring at unpaid bills, my bank account nearly empty, and the overwhelming urge to give up. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment and cried until my chest hurt. Then I wiped my face, opened my laptop, and started teaching myself to code. I stayed up until 3 in the morning most nights, making mistake after mistake, debugging, failing, learning, rebuilding. Slowly, painfully, I created something that worked. Custom study materials. A teaching method that actually delivered results. Within 2 years, I had a waiting list. By the 3rd year, I hired my first tutor. Managing people, it turned out, was another battle entirely. My first hire quit after 3 months, calling me controlling. The words hit harder than I expected, because they sounded just like my father. That realization shook me. I didn't want to become the thing that had broken me, so I changed. I studied leadership, sought mentors, learned how to lead with empathy instead of fear, collaboration instead of control. By year 4, I launched a full online learning platform. Investors took interest, and with them came old insecurities. I nearly sabotaged my first major deal, convinced they'd eventually see me for the fraud I believed myself to be. But they didn't. They saw potential, vision, strength. By year 5, I was running a thriving company from a sleek downtown office. Glass walls, clean lines, my name printed neatly on the door. Success, however, came with its own kind of loneliness. I had employees, partners, clients who praised me daily, but few real friends. I had built walls to protect myself, and now they kept everyone at a distance. The invisible girl had become a confident woman, but somewhere inside, she still feared being unworthy of love. 6 years passed in silence. And then, one evening, my phone lit up with a name I never expected to see again. Mom. I stared at my phone for a long time before answering. 6 years. That's how long it had been since my mother last said my name. The screen buzzed again, another missed call, then a text. We need to talk, please, Bessie. My chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not pain exactly, more like an old scar being pressed. Sensitive, tender, reminding me it had never really disappeared. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice sounded older, thinner, like something had been hollowed out of it. Bessie, she said, as if testing whether the name still belonged to her. We're in trouble. I didn't respond. The silence stretched. Then she sighed, and suddenly my sister's voice replaced hers. Dad left, Betty said bluntly. The house is being foreclosed. Mom can't work anymore, and I had to drop out of med school. 6 years of nothing. No birthdays, no holidays, no, are you alive? And now this. So, I said slowly, you thought of me. We're family, Betty replied, like it explained everything. I almost laughed. What do you want? I asked. Another pause, longer this time. We need a place to stay, she said. Just for a while. There it was. Not, I'm sorry, not, we were wrong. Just need. Desperation wrapped in entitlement. A part of me still wanted it. The approval, the recognition I'd chased my entire childhood. The fantasy that this was my moment, that they finally saw me. But I wasn't that girl anymore. No, I said. What? Betty snapped. You can't be serious. Family doesn't ignore you for 6 years and then call when they need something, I replied, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. Everyone deserves a second chance, she pleaded. You had chances, I said. I begged for 18 years. Her voice dropped. Please, we have nowhere else to go. For a heartbeat, the old ache flared. Then I exhaled. I'm sorry you're struggling, I said, but I can't help you. Can't or won't, she challenged. Both. The next day, they showed up at my office. My mother looked smaller somehow, older. Betty stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes darting around, taking in the glass walls, the polished floors, the success they'd never believed I could achieve. You look well, my mother said quietly. I am, I replied. We've missed you, Betty added. Have you? I asked. Or did you miss what I could give you? They exchanged glances. We thought about reaching out, my mother began. But you didn't, I finished. Not until you needed something. Silence again. When's my birthday, Betty? I asked suddenly. She frowned, looked at my mother. July 18th? I laughed, short, humorless. It's April 3rd. 18 years under the same roof, and they never knew. We want to make things right, my mother whispered. For a moment, I imagined it. The family I'd always wanted. Apologies, accountability, love without conditions. But the illusion shattered quickly. They didn't see me. They saw a solution. I believe you're sorry, I said, but not for the right reasons. You're sorry you need me now, not for how you treated me. My mother's face hardened. After everything we did for you. I stood. What exactly did you do for me? I asked, just as I had 6 years ago. She listed the basics. Food, shelter, clothes. The minimum, I said. That doesn't entitle you to my life. Betty scoffed. You were always selfish. The irony almost made me smile. I built this life without you, I said calmly. I owe you nothing. I walked out of the conference room, leaving them behind. And for the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It felt like peace. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I felt guilty, surprisingly I didn't, but because something inside me had finally gone quiet. The constant hum of what ifs and maybe I should have had faded, leaving behind an unfamiliar stillness. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm and stared at the ceiling of my apartment, tracing cracks like constellations. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. When I told my boyfriend, Daniel, what had happened, he didn't interrupt. He just listened, his hand resting over mine like an anchor. You did the right thing, he said when I finished. Not loudly, not dramatically, just certain. I believed him. Over the next few weeks, my mother kept trying. Emails, voicemails, messages that swung wildly between apology and accusation. We just want to be a family again. You've always been so cold. I raised you better than this. I didn't reply. Then Betty tried a different approach. She showed up alone one evening, waiting outside my office building. When I saw her through the glass doors, something old and reflexive twisted in my stomach, but it didn't control me. I just want to talk, she said, eyes glossy. You've had 6 years to talk, I replied. She swallowed. Do you know how humiliating it was to stand there and realize you didn't need us? That you never did? There it was. Not regret, resentment. You're right, I said. I didn't need you. I needed parents. I needed a sister. And you chose not to be that. Her face hardened. You think you're better than us now. No, I said gently. I think I'm free. She left without another word, and something in me finally let go. Months passed. The foreclosure went through. My parents moved in with a distant relative. Betty bounced between friends' couches, posting vague quotes online about betrayal and blood ties. I watched from a distance, sad but detached. One evening, as Daniel and I cooked dinner together, I realized something startling. I was happy. Not performatively, not because I'd won, but because my life finally belonged to me. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. Therapy helped me name the truth I'd buried for years. Love that comes with conditions isn't love, it's control. The invisible girl didn't disappear. She grew teeth. She learned boundaries. She learned that choosing herself wasn't selfish, it was survival. Sometimes I still think about that little girl with the solar system diorama, standing in the kitchen, hoping someone would look up and see her. If I could speak to her now, I'd kneel beside her and say, "You were never the problem. They just didn't know how to love you, and that was never your fault." I didn't reconcile with my family, not because I hated them, but because I finally loved myself enough not to accept scraps. And for the first time in my life, that was more than enough.